Join us today on the Final Hour podcast as we talk about a ruthless super soldier out of the Old Testament that God uses to bring immediate change to a nation.
We interrupt your program to issue a severe warning for an impending emergency making its way to your area. We urge you to be watchmen of the times and to be prepared with the essential knowledge and supplies for the wake of the final hour.
Welcome to the Final Hour podcast, coming to you from the original Living Word Christian Center out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. My name is Jim Hammond, and
I'm Linnea Farrell.
I'm John Gapp.
And we thank you so much for tuning in with us today. We're blessed to be here. We are taping this on Thursday morning, February the 9th. This will air on Happy Valentine's Day, Tuesday.
Love Day.
We hope
February
you
14th.
love this episode.
12:01. And again, we just want to thank, so we have mainly Kevin Wires, Evan, Donnie, Derek Schrader, putting so much work, and as well as Jeremiah and John.
Yep.
Jeremiah's our producer.
Yes.
Jerry.
Hello.
There's Jerry. I forgot Jerry had a mic.
It's always good
Jerry
to
has a
hear
mic.
Is that a good thing?
Jerry's
Depends on what Jerry
smooth
uses his
voice.
mic for.
only for good.
Only Jerry just showed up with a mic. He just didn't. He
did.
just had a mic, and no, I'm just kidding.
He's tired of the mute
Had one in his
button.
pocket, and he said,
I'm using
I'm
this.
in.
We're gonna do a little bit different. Go back to a certain format that we felt like worked for us a few weeks ago, and so we've got Linnea with.
We're ready to go.
Linnea.
We are ready.
Linnea with her.
You got some interesting stuff to talk about today, don't you?
I do.
There are a lot of things in the news.
There are a lot of things in the news, and some of it is in the news. It's pretty prominent in the news, and then there's some things that are a little quieter. But we're going to start with, obviously, the devastating earthquake that took place in Turkey and Syria. And actually, I hadn't heard about it yet. And John was sending me TikToks, which we'll talk about TikTok later,
Right.
about just the devastation that had been happening.
Yeah.
And at this point right now, there's 16,000 people confirmed dead. As of yesterday, they're still pulling people out.
Yep.
I think they said like search and rescue teams are kind of dwindling now. But the earthquake was a 7.8 magnitude earthquake.
Yep.
And it struck Turkey, and they said they felt it all the way in Greenland.
Right.
Which is, I think that's a far way away.
Yeah,
But anyways.
that's pretty far.
They said that it rocked all the way down there, and they even said like little bits of it could be found or felt in Denmark. So they said that this big earthquake in Turkey, it has likely led to destabilization of fault lines across the world.
Yep.
So they're saying that earthquake might have affected a lot of other fault lines, which I guess we'll see. And actually on Monday in Buffalo, New York, which I hadn't heard about till I read this, they said that there's a 3.8 magnitude earthquake. So, and that was the first one that they had recorded in 40 years.
Right.
So you already kind of see some things coming out about that. But
Well, it was interesting to watch because as soon as I had seen some of it come up on TikTok on Monday morning, then I went over to that Dutch Since YouTube channel because he goes
Dutch
over
Sheets, right?
and Dutch Since.
Oh,
Dutch Sheets is the
other guy? Okay.
Bible guy. Dutch Since is he's got a YouTube channel, and but he goes through like the technicals of what happened with an earthquake. But he was showing different things, and he's like the biggest tragedy is all of these buildings in the main city right next to where that struck. Everything is built on blocks, like cinder blocks. Which there's not a lot of give. There's not a lot of structural flexibility. So when a big earthquake like that, you could see buildings just
it was so
collapse
sad. It was really
immediately. Just pancaked, go from 40, 50, 60 feet high, and all of a sudden everything is down.
Crazy.
All on the ground. It was devastating, and pray for Turkey. That's the part of the epistles that we're talking about from from Jesus, right? In Revelations, that's mostly located in Asia Minor. Asia Minor.
Also, it happened in Syria too. And didn't you say that this would destabilize fault lines around the world?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so they're predicting that there will be more earthquakes. And the disciples asked Jesus in Matthew 24, they will be, what will be a sign of your coming?
Yeah.
Now, originally in this text of Scripture, he's talking about his second coming, okay? But his second coming is only 7 to 10 years away from the rapture, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people believe there's a 3-year time space between the rapture and when the tribulation starts, okay? So Jesus said, he answered them, be careful that no one misleads you, deceiving you and leading you into error. For many will come on the strength of my name, appropriating the name which belongs to me, saying, I am the Christ. We haven't seen that. That'll happen in the tribulation. And at least not that I know of. He says many will be saying they're Jesus in the tribulation, and they'll lead many astray. And he also said, be careful that no one misleads you. And there's a lot of people being led astray today, either way. And you will hear rumors of wars. See that you're not frightened or troubled. So that you can actually be in a position where you're not scared if he's telling you not to be scared. For this must take place, and the end is not yet. For nation rises against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in place after place. All of this is but the beginning, the early pains of the birth pangs of the intolerable anguish. So this leads up. This all leads up, even to the tribulation, and he's calling it, right?
Yeah.
And we were.
I was just gonna say.
We were looking at the stats on that one day, and I think earthquakes. The lowest stat you're gonna find is if you go back to the 1980s, they're times 12. The number of earthquakes, the number of natural disasters, the lowest stat you're going to find is 5 times more than it was in the 80s, right?
Wow.
And so you can see that if you dig for it. And he says there will be famines and earthquakes in place after place. Then he goes on to talk about what the Jews are going to experience in the tribulation. So, we're just reminding you, this it's going to ramp up even more.
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
That Dutch Sins guy, just to back that up, he said big earthquakes that are like 6.0 and higher oftentimes have a aftershock, or not an aftershock, but there's an earthquake that happens on the exact other side of the world.
Well, I guess that would explain why New York had it. But even he's like predicting that there's going to be one between Fiji and New Zealand. Oh, interesting.
Problem is that can result in a tsunami,
which we saw a couple of years ago.
Right.
Which I know a couple of weeks ago I was just looking at news, and there was a small earthquake, like a 3.8. You hate to say small, in California. I don't know who felt it, but I was like, oh, that's interesting, because they're kind of starting to pop up a little more in the United States. But moving on. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention. I know I don't want to say we've given attention to the Satanic Temple, but we have been bringing it to your attention just because they are so prevalent lately. Right. They're kind of popping up. And obviously with the abortion thing, they're a little more vocal about where they stand. So the Satanic Temple is opening the world's first religious abortion clinic. Yeah. They're offering abortion rituals in New Mexico. And this is starting on February 14th. That's when they're opening their doors to people. So the Satanic Temple is proud to expand reproductive options for our members. This is just the beginning. They said they will remain steadfast as we continue the fight to uphold reproductive justice in the United States. So not only this clinic is it allowing it in New Mexico, but they're actually allowing telehealth abortions to take place. So if you live in, I don't know, another state where it's not allowed, you can call them and they can send you, if it's in a certain amount of time, they can send you pills in the mail to take to give you an abortion if your state doesn't allow it. But they're basically welcoming their doors like state of Minnesota is to anybody who wants one, they can come here.
Yeah.
But one of a kind.
Well, I think that turns into just they want even though they'll deny all this, the Satanic Church, will sacrifice. They'll give those babies to Satan.
Yeah, they said abortion rituals, and I don't know if
abortion rituals.
And I don't know if any of you have seen it. I was on the news topic,
children.
or was on the news a couple weeks ago. But when Ruth
Ginsburg,
passed away,
RGB.
they erected a
RBG.
statue for her in New York, and they were comparing that statue to Molech. Because she did a lot for women's abortion, reproductive rights, and it looks so similar to that.
Yeah, it looks like the Old Testament, a rendition of the Old Testament god Molech.
Yes,
where they killed, they burned their babies,
and
they passed their babies through the fire, and sacrificed their babies to this god, and it's just interesting. It's just what a coincidence. The statue of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It looks like the Old Testament god Molech.
It does. It's uncanny. But speaking of satanic rituals and practices, I don't know if any of you saw the Grammys. I think I sent it to John because I didn't watch the Grammys.
I didn't watch it at all, but the aftermath was pretty
shocking. So I don't know if you guys know who Sam Smith is. Basically, he's a transgender artist, and he's like one of a kind, coming out of doing whatever, proclaiming this position. And he performed at the Grammys with somebody. And in his performance, he posted a tweet like that he was getting ready with his people. And he said, "This is going to be special." That was his tweet. And CBS, which it was aired on, replied back to the tweet and said, "You can say that again. We are ready to worship." I don't know who on here has seen Sam Smith's performance, but he is dressed up as the devil.
Yep.
And his dancers, they're men and women. They're dressed up like demons. And it is... I mean, I watched 5 seconds of it, and I was like disgusted.
It was more than enough to see exactly what they're going for, and it is horrendous.
It is horrendous.
This is the Grammys.
This is the Grammys.
So you can check that out yourself, but this is where our entertainment industry is definitely going.
Right.
But we are ready to worship. I mean, they're basically saying,
CBS.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
Because they want to get rid of God. Speaking of that, you have the Church of England. They're debating whether God should become gender neutral. So they're proposing a debate around removing God as him, he, and our Father, and having more inclusive gendered terms when they reference God in church. I know.
I could be wrong. The Church of England, that I believe that's an Anglican church, which basically over here turns into the Episcopal Church.
Right.
And so we used to go to the Episcopal Church back when I was a kid, and so and they've always been just more progressive, more liberal, and this is what I'm talking about. This is what the 7 letters to the 7 churches are talking about. Not compromising. Here you have a whole denomination. You have a whole denomination that's talking about calling God a he, him, her. The pronoun thing. So it's typical. I would figure that they would be first, honestly, of all the denominations.
Yeah.
Or some. Not trying to offend anybody.
LCU.
I don't know.
Because they've had the Lutheran Church. They've had different parts of it. Have been very progressive with homosexuality.
Yes, and we've even seen the Catholics and all those groups, smaller, certain pockets of those people and their places allowing this.
Because I will say there's some Lutherans that we agree with.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That we I was going to say but
you guys, do you remember a couple weeks ago in one of our podcasts we talked about how they're trying to make Christianity be whatever you wanted it to be.
Oh yeah.
So I mean,
it's the smorgasbord.
Yeah. It's just whatever you want, people. And anyways.
Well, it all goes back to you can't tell me, if as a Christian, if you cannot take direction from specifically the Bible, but then also outside of that, the Holy Spirit, who can tell you no? Right? That's the conversation. Is anyone able to tell you no? And if they can't, then you're your own God and you're making it up as you go. But if you are subject, if you give the authority in your life to God, then he's able to direct you. And, it's not about you, it's about him. And it's something that we're losing in a lot of culture and society right now.
Yeah, but like this all brings me back to the return of the gods that we talked about, and how they remove God and God gets removed, and then all these other things come in, and you see it when like that opened my eyes, because that helped me. I was like, okay, that's why.
Yeah.
It's not God's fault. It's our fault.
No, yeah.
Not that
sure.
I'm not blaming God, but we all go through phases of like, why does this happen?
Yep.
Just being honest.
And I enjoy that you're honest.
But there are ways we can stop it from happening, and we have talked about that, because we do pray, and we are prayers, and we know we give you guys prayer points. Like all these things we're bringing up isn't just to talk about and give glory to glorify anything.
Yeah.
It's so that you can pray and stand against these things, because we do see things changing, and we try our best to update you when those happen. So we do have 2 updates, because California, we talked about it, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. Here. Good news. So 2 of Governor Newsom's bills were blocked. The first bill that was blocked was the COVID misinformation law. Remember, he was not going to allow anybody to say anything adherent to his administration about COVID. Well, the federal judge said that that's unconstitutional.
Right.
Thank God. So then the second one that was blocked was a law that would penalize doctors that spoke out against COVID-19 protocols. If they didn't agree with something and they had a different stance on it, they could potentially lose their license. Well, a judge also said that that was unconstitutional. So you see progress being made.
Right.
Which is good in California, because you kind of look at all their bills and their laws that they slide in. And even in Minnesota, I was watching, I think it's called like Minnesota Alpha News or something. It's something I follow on Instagram. And they were saying that a lot of legislators or lawmakers in Minnesota were getting frustrated with the new branch of people that got voted in, because they're trying to rush everything in without like letting people read the bills, look at the bills, and have an argument against it. So they're kind of like, we need to slow down on everything we're passing here.
Right. And it's interesting, it's not the legislature, but you see a lot of executive orders from the president here in Minnesota, Governor Walz. You see in California, Newsom. There's a lot of executive orders that bypass the whole legislative branch. Things that are supposed to go into law are supposed to be developed in the legislature. And when executive branch goes over their head and just says, we're going to do this because this is in my executive powers, it speeds up the process that government is supposed to take. Government, especially in America, is made to be slow, so it isn't reactive. It says this, things that are going to change, it's going to have to take a while, because we want to make sure that it's really actually good to do this change. So with all these executive orders, it's hard to swallow, because it's not the way that the government was actually designed here in America.
But I'm just so tired of the COVID. Excuse my language. Crap.
Strong language.
They're still doing this.
I know. It's been 4 years.
They're still pushing through bills about what you're not allowed to say.
I know.
Right? And so much was proven wrong. Right?
Yeah.
And so much was I guarantee you, all the people that never got the vaccination are so happy.
Oh, yeah.
That they didn't get the vaccination. And by the way, I did get it, right?
Yeah.
Because I thought I was going to Israel.
Yeah.
And I thought the Lord told me to go to Israel. And so I thought, and this is not, you shouldn't do this, right? But I believed, I can drink any deadly thing.
Absolutely.
And
but if you have the faith for that.
But can I just tell you, that's not what I recommend. I don't recommend. I'm not telling you can just go get it. That's up to you. If you want to get it, you get it.
Yeah.
Right? We're not criticizing anyone that gets it. I'm saying I have it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But and I dealt with things that I had never had, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without going into it. But it's just so sad that they take away freedom of speech, where you're not even allowed to talk about it, and they call us. They're still pushing that stuff.
I know, but they're
they're still trying to get that stuff through.
And a couple weeks ago, I was telling Jim that there's an article, I don't know if it was in the Washington Post or something, but somebody wrote an opinion piece where they were saying, we're mad at the people who didn't get vaccinated because they didn't push us enough and they didn't give us enough information on why they weren't getting vaccinated. And now they said they have blood on their hands for anything that's happened to anybody.
The non-vaccinated people.
Everybody who was non-vaccinated that spoke up got silenced.
I mean, we had friends who wouldn't come over because we weren't vaccinated. Like, we're done with your family. You guys aren't vaccinated. They obviously
had no intention of
But
listening.
Remember when I told you that?
Yeah, and they said that they actually said, this is the Washington Post.
Yeah.
They said that we should forgive them.
Yeah.
For how mean they were.
Yeah. Yes, that's
Have
right.
they heard about forgiveness?
But the blood is on our hands.
Blood is on our hands.
Yeah, it was a great piece.
Not on Biden, who mandated it.
No,
it was a good piece. It was.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
a good piece, but a good piece, because I was like, look, these people realize now that
this is a real newspaper article.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
I think the funny thing is,
I'll link it.
the more people come out with crazy takes like this, the more other people read it and they're like, that doesn't make any sense at all.
You guys, if you put something on, I mean, think of all the non-vaccinated people who posted on their Twitter. You got taken down for misinformation. So you're coming at the wrong people, which I know that there's a whole Twitter hearing right now.
Yeah.
And
there's
a lot in there. There's
a lot of people being grilled
they
right
are
now.
being
Well, I just want the other platforms to be held responsible too, because they're still doing the same stuff.
Absolutely.
And so
speaking of, I know we'll do TikTok really fast because John has an interesting take on this because we were talking about TikTok.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen,
wasn't it Joe Rogan and
I think I saw originally on Joe Rogan there was a guest who was talking about TikTok and Google and YouTube and Facebook and all these different entities. Number one, measure what kind of social media you're letting into your life. Make sure you have good boundaries. But it was interesting because this guest, and I can't remember what his name was. This guest was saying this whole TikTok is a national threat thing. He thinks that Facebook and Google are kind of trying to push that narrative because they are losing major chunks of revenue sources because TikTok's marketing has been so successful.
Yeah.
And so they're basically saying there's a poison pill in the media going, TikTok is the devil because they're losing money to the TikTok
just
system.
Another theory because I do think yes, it is. There is still some interesting theories around it with China.
Right. For sure.
And everything China's done.
Well, it's from China.
Yes.
Right?
But like
Josh
Chinese
Howard is
creators.
really pushing against it.
Oh yeah.
And then it's just a theory.
There's a lot of Google and there's a lot of Facebook that is tied in with China government as well. So you can look for tentacles either way you go.
I know, but I just wouldn't. It was created in China. It's got Chinese owners, right?
Yeah, China.
Yep.
I'm just saying.
I agree.
I know, because you have China. China's kind of like
China.
I don't know, all over. Like you had the Chinese spy balloon thing that happened last week, and
we're just finding out there's been 4 balloons before that we never found.
8? Is that what they're saying now?
8.
8 balloons.
Except for they're saying a lot of them got shot down before they even got to the U.S. coast. But
this one, I mean. We're kind of jumping around here, but we'll just go with this because it's an interesting topic.
Yeah.
Because China was saying that they had the balloon in the air for weather research.
Right.
Me and Jim were reading this morning.
What are you doing sending it over our country?
And then when, we found out about it, I don't know how happy the Biden administration was that so many citizens saw it and started making alerts on it. Like I got an alert that it was in Missouri, and that's where my son goes to college. And I texted him, I was like, watch for the balloon. And he's like, yeah, it flew over our house.
Yeah.
So I think that it picked up in the media because so many people, and they're putting it on their social medias. So Biden didn't have a chance, but it basically floated across the whole United States, and then they shot it down.
I heard about it when it just came over Montana. That was when I first heard about it. And it's, it's like That thing was 100 feet tall. The balloon was 100 feet tall, and it could carry over 8,000 pounds, that balloon. So there's some sophisticated tech inside that whole system. It's not just a hot air balloon.
No, I heard in Montana,
it is massive.
when they got alerted, they said it was over like a nuclear site at that point.
Shocking.
So
Well,
very kind of crazy, but
Well, it doesn't surprise me that it made it all the way across the states before anyone did anything.
I also heard that the whatever agencies that protect America, that they are able to cut off communication to that balloon whenever it was over certain areas, and then
so it didn't alert things?
and then they can also track where everything's coming from.
'Cause
So
I heard-
there's a lot of different angles that you can go about counterintelligence.
yeah, because is that the EMP thing, the electromagnetic pulse? Did you hear about that?
No.
Oh, okay. I don't really know too much about that. I thought you would.
I know it about
Okay.
EMPs. I didn't know if that was something
they
you're
were
talking
saying-
about.
Could
with
shut down the power.
Yeah. they
yeah,
were
you
saying
could
they
drop an
could
EMP and
Yeah.
really
Mess
affect
do
mess
a
us
lot of
up.
things. Yeah.
yeah, definitely
Mess
So,
a lot of people up
anyways.
for a long time.
for
Yeah.
a long time.
But I'll speed the news along here. But so Biden did his State of the Union
Thanks, Biden.
the other day, halfway through his term. He was positively portraying the current state of the United States of America and how great our economy is and how great everything is. So he had some misleading claims, and he
Interesting.
claimed that he created 12 million new jobs. Okay.
Good job.
He also reiterated that Americans are taking home more money despite inflation. I don't know. Does anybody have any extra money in their bank account?
you
'Cause-
you can take more money home, but because of inflation, it doesn't actually do more. That's the effect of inflation. The problem is pay doesn't go in front of inflation as far as cost of goods. So just because inflation is there, you can take the same amount of money home and it can't do as much.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Like eggs used to be $1.67 and now they're like $8.04.
There's other parts.
But
of it.
so Biden in his speech, he said he created 12 million new jobs. He said he created more jobs in the last 2 years than any president
That's
has in 4
incredible.
years. I feel like he did that last time he did his speech.
He did.
Does he
Last
just?
year
Is
he
this
did
his
the
same
same thing.
speech?
The devil speech.
Oh, that's right, Jim.
Yeah, the devil
He
speech.
did. He had red in the background.
Yeah, it looked like he was
yeah.
standing at the gates of hell.
That was.
Hey, isn't that interesting with what we talked about in the beginning of this podcast?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
He's very prevalent. The devil is.
It's also funny that China is red.
That's true.
Yes.
Just throwing out
look down when he
coincidences.
said that. But anyways, really quick, just to debunk the new jobs that he created. So when businesses shut down due to the COVID pandemic, we lost 22 million jobs. By the time Trump left office, the economy was slowly reopening and 12.5 million people returned back to work.
Yeah.
So the 12 million new jobs that were added under the Biden administration were mostly made up of the 10 million people that were still waiting to re-enter the
still
workforce
trying to get back in.
because of COVID.
That
which
lost their jobs because
Yes.
they shut down the country for the virus. Right?
But if the economy's doing so good, I know we've discussed this, but I'm just so confused. Then why is Disney World laying off 10,000 people this month? Why is Google laying off 20,000 people? If it's so good and everything's
It's
just
not
trucking
good.
along like it should, then why?
Because TikTok's taking all the jobs.
Or AIs.
No, okay.
But anyways, Biden also said, this is what he said last year too, that gas prices are down. Which gas prices are down from when he jumped them up to $5 because he shut down a bunch of
but
pipelines.
what
In
was the
Maple
original
Grove.
price?
The
What-
original price was
When he
Was-
took
when
took
he-
office, it was
I
around
don't- I'll-
$2.
yes. All I know is when I
$2.19, I
filled
believe.
my gas tank, it was like $36.
Yeah.
And it's what now?
When I
So-
fill my gas tank, it's
yeah.
like
I'm just trying to.
$70 now.
So at the election, gas prices were about $2.80 here in Maple Grove.
Yeah.
Today, it's averaging $3.49.
Yeah.
So okay. So,
So-
gas went up by
Would you-
Just since
$1.50
November.
ish.
but okay. So what else? There was something else too there.
Yeah. So what about the gas?
No, there's something else he claimed. Inflation. He came
Yes.
in when Biden came in to office. Inflation was 1.4%. Okay,
Record lows.
and so he's lying. He's saying inflation has now fallen to 6.5
from like a couple months ago.
But
because it was at 9.1% in
Right.
June.
but
Right.
it's still even at 6.5.
It's way
That's
up.
5 times more
Right.
than
Right.
when he came in.
Right.
Okay, so we're just straightening out.
And-
It's what a joke. Why
and-
even do this?
And you guys, I don't know why he did. Well,
because they all believe it.
They
Well,
did believe
Eh,
it.
they all believe it.
Yeah.
It's
It's an old practice in Washington is to lie with statistics. You take what you want to say and you frame it during frame it for what you want to say, and you can pick and choose what you're comparing it to. So if inflation was high in June and right now it's lower, you say, look, we have lowered the inflation.
But
Where
yes, but can I tell you something? If I didn't do research and look
Right.
things up, I would think, oh, he's
be like,
telling the truth.
hey, we're down.
Yeah.
well,
oh my
he
gosh,
he is telling the truth, but
Right.
only from a certain point of view.
because you're not looking
not
at the
from
numbers,
the truth.
right?
He's down from 9. It got up to almost 10%. Now it's dropped to 6%. But guess what? When he came into office, it was 1%.
Yes.
All right. So
was-
that's how.
It's
And,
incredible.
and I will say, yeah, it's been a practice. But I remember even going back to Clinton and both
Yeah.
Bushes, and Obama did it more, I thought, but it never to this extent. It was not to this extent. I didn't feel like it's out of control. Like
Yeah.
everything's a lie.
Well-
Everything's a lie.
Well-
And you can see it on both sides, to be honest.
Right,
Yes.
right.
You have to check what are they comparing it to, because, like I said, a lot of the politics is lying with stats.
Right.
Right.
It is. And I'll give you one more thing of the State of Union, then we'll go with Jim. But he said, Biden said, unlawful migration from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela has come down 97%. Okay, this guy says this might be technically true, but only because Biden recently rolled out a program where illegal aliens from these 4 countries can sign up for a program to enter the U.S. legally. So they're still coming into the country. They're just not entering as unlawful aliens. They're
Right.
entering the U.S. with his permission from his administration.
If there's no law to stop you from entering, then you
Yeah.
know everyone can.
And didn't we
everyone
say-
can.
He's already let in 800,000.
Yeah, and didn't we
Right?
say
Was it
no-
800,000?
that was, I think it's higher.
Yeah, I feel like it. I
On
don't.
the
I don't
border.
know what the number is.
Yeah.
I wish I did. But then they're giving these people phones with the application where they can fill
They
out
all get a phone.
information ahead of time, which is probably what these 4 countries have,
Right.
so they can enter when
That's
they
where your
arrive.
tax dollars are going.
It's sad.
Your federal tax dollars. You're buying
And you guys,
You're buying an
these-
immigrant a phone.
You're
We
buying
have-
Ukraine their weapons, and
And-
you're buying immigrants.
And just really
phones.
quick, they're allowing these people in, and they're allowing them to have the rights of the citizens without even doing anything.
They're getting driver's license.
They're getting driver's license,
Right.
but even in California, you're an illegal immigrant. Maybe you were a murderer in your country. You come here. Here you go. You can be a police officer in California
you
now.
be a cop. Yep.
And remember, we talked about a couple weeks ago in Minnesota, that one lady was saying, like, if you guys don't start to see us illegal aliens as citizens, we will vote you, or we will make sure that you don't keep your vote to stay in office. We'll move in somebody else who will allow us to have the right.
And you know what's really funny is we've tried to get different people here.
Oh, yeah.
We've got a Spanish church, so we were trying to bring in a technical guy from Colombia.
Yep.
Really good guy.
Yeah.
We're trying to do it right. Whole green card. You spend thousands of dollars
Right.
on an immigration attorney.
Yep.
We also had to do it with someone out of Canada.
Yeah.
Right, for a worship leader. Here's the thing. They put you through living hell.
They do.
Yep. Yep.
When you try to do it right, and guess what? The guy from South America didn't get in.
Yeah, he got denied.
Denied. And I'm kind of like, well, maybe you should just go to the border and you get a
Right.
phone on top of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. We'll pick you up.
Do
We'll
you
pick
get what
up
I'm
in
saying?
Dallas.
Yeah.
Do you get how it's such a two-way street?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You try and do it the right way. And
Yeah, you try to do it right the way. No, let's just
Yeah.
send him up through the border then.
Yep.
Right? He has a better chance. We do it the right way. We spend money. We spend money with the government.
Yep.
We try to do it all legally, and they deny it. Right?
yeah, I don't get it. That, to me,
It's a lot of bureaucracy and red tape.
it is. But
And it's
why
playing
not allow
politics
somebody
with
who's
people's
trying to...
lives?
But why are you
Absolutely.
denying anybody if you're letting anybody come over? Why deny anybody?
Right. And
I don't know.
I don't know either.
excuse me.
We'll find out.
We're on it.
So I listen to like an audio Bible every night, and I think for probably maybe a little over a year I've been listening just Joshua, Judges, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, and it just is so in me. You know, I mean, I have orders of things happening, and I just learned so much. But I giving you a backdrop of where the nation of Israel was at the point where these books, you know, were being written. And we see how they got to this point. You know, I start looking at how there's two nations of Israel, right? There's a north and a south, and it's in the Old Testament. It's very similar to the U.S.
Yeah.
And really, just to explain, Israel was split into two kingdoms. There was it went through David and Solomon. It was one kingdom, okay? And through the book that before that, King Saul, and then they had judges.
Judges, yeah.
Right? That were over each tribe. But then King Solomon in 1 Kings 11, verse 1, he defiantly loved many foreign women. Okay, this is how they got to where they were at. It started out, the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites. They were of the very nations of whom the Lord said to the Israelites, you shall not mingle with them, neither shall they mingle with you. And for surely they will turn your heart away from God. God told Solomon this personally.
Yeah.
Yet it says Solomon clung to these 1,000 women in love. Just like, what a doofus. I'm sorry if you're
thirsty.
What a complete doofus. I know he's the wisest man in the world. He'd had 2 visitations from God.
He can get dumb, though, real quick.
Listen, verse 3, he had 700 wives and 300 concubines. The wives were all princesses.
It just seems like a lot of trouble.
I would love to go down that road one day.
Would you? You'd like to be one of the
I'm saying, imagine being him and having 1,000 women.
How do you
think of middle schoolers when they both like the same boy, how petty they are, and just think of 1,000 women.
Oh Lord!
And
I don't even.
It says these wives turned his heart away from God, right?
Yeah.
But you know, and I've heard people say, well, he had to marry the princesses.
You didn't have to
for military alliances, and I'm just like 700 of them.
Well, and
Really?
that's why
That's a lot of ceremonies.
But that's why you have other parts of
2 years.
your government too, and like brothers and sisters, and you know, there's lots of other ways to happen.
But
for
think
that
he
to happen.
probably didn't just dive right into like their worship. He probably observed it for a while and then thought, that's not so bad. Because we've talked about little compromises, right? In
Right.
all of our messages that we've done so far. So I'm sure it wasn't like he probably watched it at first and he probably got like a check. But then the more you're around it, you just get desensitized and you're like, that's not so bad.
Read the book of Ecclesiastes. You'll see where he was at.
He's like,
Really? I'm going to read that.
And when Solomon was old, his wives
Bingo.
turned away his heart after other gods. His heart was not perfect, complete, and whole with the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father. Solomon went after Ashtoreth. We've talked about her, the goddess of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the abominable idol of the Ammonites. Okay, Ashtoreth we've talked about. All right, Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, went not fully after the Lord as did David his father. Then he took another step, and he built a high place for Shemosh, the abominable idol of Moab, on the hill opposite of Jerusalem, East Jerusalem.
Wow.
And for Molech, this is Solomon, Molech, the abominable idol of the Ammonites. Molech is the baby eater.
Right. It's
He would have the fire in his hands
Horrible.
or in his mouth. And the women would sacrifice their infant babies to Molech. And Solomon
Maybe that's why he had so many wives.
Solomon
He could just
had
be a
this thing
constant
built.
sacrificer.
He had and it was huge.
So gross.
And
That's
he
so
did
terrible.
so for his foreign wives who burned incense and sacrificed to their gods. Some obviously babies, if Moloch was up there. The Lord was angry with Solomon because his heart was turned from the Lord and the God who had appeared to him twice. Imagine, that just says so much. Just because God appears to you
Yeah.
twice, we all want. We would all. There's times where I think I might get one. Right, where I'm
A visitation from God.
Yes, I do. I'm that close. I think it's going to happen. I'm in my, whatever in the mornings, But think about that. He got two.
Yeah.
Right, and one of them he had commanded concerning this thing. The Lord talked to him about this, that he should not do this, and it just shows you, it doesn't matter if you're the wisest man in the world. It doesn't matter if you get two visitations from God. Anybody can fall.
Yeah.
All right. And therefore the Lord said to Solomon, because you are doing this and have not kept my covenant and what I told you to do, I'm going to rend the kingdom from you and I'm going to give it to your servant. And so what happens is the Lord split the kingdom in two at that point. And the smaller part stayed with Solomon's bloodline. All right, which was David's bloodline, and went to his son by the name of Rehoboam. But when Rehoboam got the kingdom, half the kingdom rebelled, over half, and went under a guy named Jeroboam, and split. It split into the north and the south, all right?
Battle of the Boams.
And why are we talking about this, right? Because 1 Corinthians 10:11. Now all these things happened to them, the Israelites, for examples, right? For they are written for our admonition, right? Upon whom the ends of the world are come. Wow, we're talking about the end of the world. We're talking about them. We're talking about they're written for our example. And so based out of what Solomon did, he invited two of the three gods we talked about, Ashtoreth and Molech, right?
Right.
And remember, Ashtoreth, when we talked about her, there's always a strong sexual perversion component to the worship of Ashtoreth. Yep. These are not good gods. You've got one with temple prostitution. The other one, wants your baby to be burned, right? The other one wants your baby. And
so sad.
And that just says they were burning babies under Solomon.
Right.
The wisest man that's ever lived had two visitations. You got Molech, and you know what's crazy about this? I was reading these idols he built in these high places were never torn down.
Yeah, that was crazy when you told me that.
Until Josiah. And who was, because you know how it'll say, oh, and so came and he did all the
destroyed all of
he did good things, right? He did good in the sight of the Lord, right? It would announce what, when they got a new king. It didn't matter. None of these guys tore this stuff down, and until you get to Josiah, who down in Judah was the last of the five Judah kings before the Israelites from the south got taken to Babylon. Right. Got overtaken by the Babylonians, by Nebuchadnezzar, and he shipped them all up to Babylon for 70 years. And so check this out. 2 Kings 23:13. We're skipping forward here to Josiah, who we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about week after next. When the high places that were before Jerusalem, which were on the right hand of the Mount of Corruption, which Solomon, the king of Israel, had builded to Ashtoreth, the abomination of the Zidonians. All right, and Chemosh, the abomination of the Moabites, and for Milcom, the abomination of the children of Ammon. I think that's Molech, because that's an Ammonite god.
Right.
So this is Josiah finally pulls these things down.
Yeah.
All right, 300 years. Yeah. These things were up 290 years. They were up. So what does that tell you now? Once you invite it in, right? Yeah. It's a concerted effort, right?
Right.
By usually a man that's been anointed. And we're getting ahead of ourselves with Josiah, but all these good kings in Judah, some bad ones, right?
Right.
In the north and northern Israel, and not one of them tore down these idols that wise King Solomon put up in the hills of East Jerusalem.
Do Do you think it's interesting that if you go back to the days of Noah and there afterward, and then you have the Tower of Babel and you have all these different peoples that start developing, the Ammonites, the Amalekites, and all of the ites,
Ishtites.
all of the tites that are super ish,
Edomites.
right? That God said for the children of Israel to remove from the land when he sent Israel back to the promised land. There's a lot of commentary, I think you've talked about it, that a lot of those had part of the fallen angels, blood, that
They
God
did.
was trying to protect Israel from. And here is the bloodline of David inviting those people right back in.
Yeah.
And it led to their destruction.
Right. And
And then it's the bloodline of David that
Yeah.
saves it all, and it's
Right.
God's son.
It's crazy.
there's some deep stuff there,
There is.
because just crazy stuff. I was doing a study on because Samson's in Judges, right?
Right. Yep.
And you read about Samson, and what a talented guy, but Samson, what a doofus.
Right.
Samson
For a girl.
he never did anything right.
No.
I mean, he really never, he did very little right, but he was so anointed,
Right.
right? He was so anointed and so, I'm not just talking about physically strong. He was he grew up in the military. He was a military kid. He was part of, they called him the Nazarites.
Yeah.
He was a warrior, right? And but because people are saying, oh, if the giants were cleared out on the flood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do you wind up with Goliath in them?
Right.
And how do you wind up with the Israelites in Judges? They're trying to take care of the giants.
Exactly.
There's a bunch of what do they call
Philistines and the
Well, there was a
You mean
certain
the Nephilims?
not the Nephilims. No, there was a certain type of giant, famous giant.
sons of Anak.
Yes, that they had to clear out, and
Right.
and people are like, well, how did they get back? And so
Yeah.
either more demons had to be,
Right.
fallen
Angels
had to be
Yeah.
having sex with human women.
But don't you think the
Or-
demons probably showed up at that ritual where you're talking about at the temples? Maybe that's where demons were.
Well, or what they thought is when the Philistines got Samson, there's a little thing because it said that he had to grind. He had to grind in the mill,
Yeah.
and that's what he did. He didn't go right
He
to his
didn't just
death.
go to
They put his eyes out and they worked him in.
put him on a grinder wheel.
But the Hebrew, famous Hebrew scholars are saying that's a sexual connotation in the Hebrew.
Really?
That they were breeding Samson, and
I've never heard that.
and
I've
Interesting.
never heard
there
that
are
one.
Jewish scholars that believe that Goliath and them were
wow.
Samson's.
Offspring.
Yeah, and this is all conjecture, but it is a question: how if God tried to clear that blood, that tainted blood,
Right.
out of the human race using the flood, then how did it get back?
Right.
How did you get it back? And but anyways, sorry about that.
That's interesting.
It's split into two countries right now: Judah in the south, and it's Israel in the north. That's what the Old Testament calls it.
Yep.
And is Israel in the north after it's split? And as bad as they get, the north goes downhill immediately.
Yep.
All right, from the split after Solomon, and doesn't last as long as Judah, the south. But what I want to show you is how in both the north and the south, all right, after the split, as bad as these guys got into all the things they did,
Yeah.
idol worship, burning babies, a form of temple prostitution, everything they were doing, in a sense, United States is doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Maybe just in a different way. But 2 Kings 21, 1 through 7. This is how bad it was. This is southern Judah, right? Towards the end. This is Josiah's grandfather, all right? So this is the seventh king from the time southern Judah gets besieged by the Babylonians. I hope we're not boring you guys today. But listen, I'm trying to make a point. This is all a setup for the next 3 weeks, okay?
Okay.
Manasseh, 2 Kings 21, was 12 years old when he began his 55-year wicked reign in Jerusalem. Now, this is the south. This is David's line. This is the more godly line, all right? And his mother's name, Hephzibah, and he, Manasseh, Hezekiah's son, did evil in the sight of the Lord.
Signature.
This is Hezekiah's son. Hezekiah was a good guy, right? But after the idolatrous practices of the heathen nations, whom the Lord cast out before the Israelites, okay? He built up again the high places, which Hezekiah, his father, had destroyed. He reared up altars. We're not talking about the East Jerusalem things. Those are still sitting there, okay? There's other high places. These people were idol freaks.
Yeah.
Any hill in groves, they would put these idols wherever they could. And he reared up altars for Baal of Asherah, that's Ashtoreth. As did Ahab of Israel, worshipped all the starry host of the heaven and served them. He built heathen altars in the house of the Lord, in the temple.
Wow.
And of the Lord, this is in the temple in Jerusalem where the Lord said, I will put my name and the pledge of my presence. And he, it says, good Hezekiah's son, built altars for all the host of the heavens in the 2 courts of the temple. All right? This was a big deal. He made his son pass through the fire and burned him as an offering to Molech. So he sacrificed his son, burned his infant baby in the fire. He practiced soothsaying, augury, dealt with mediums and wizards. He did much wickedness in the sight of the Lord, provoking him to anger. And he keeps doing this. He made a graven image of the goddess Ashtoreth and set it in the house of which the Lord said, David and Solomon his son, in this house in Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, I have put my name in the temple. So we're now, that's the 4th idol he's stuck in the temple of God. Now, so what? Wow. Like that's, but it just reminds me, it's no different than the Church of England saying, let's call God a she.
Right.
Let's make God a pronoun. Right. You've got our entertainers, our president is doing a State of the Nation or whatever it is, State of
the Union.
State of the Union, and it looks like he's at the gates of hell. Our Grammys were giving awards away to transgenders dressed up like the devil, right? And so this is the southern kingdom of Judah, late in the game. Before Nebuchadnezzar comes, besieges Jerusalem, and takes all the Israelites up to Babylon for 70 years. But look at the point they are at towards the end, because we're going to start to talk about the northern kingdom, which the Bible talks about as Israel, and they are already, this was Manasseh. The northern and the southern and the south that I just read, the northern kingdom was already here 100 to 150 years earlier. They were already there where Manasseh was, right? They progressed. They were worse. Are you guys following me?
Yes.
Than the south. I don't just feel like looking at what we just read, you can say, oh, well, we're not burning babies, Jim.
Are we, though? Do we know that we're not burning babies?
That's right.
I'm just saying, they were doing it then, but they're not doing it now. I just don't believe that.
And we're killing a heck of a lot more babies than they were killing.
Right.
But I
guarantee you. Okay, this is nationwide.
But I'm saying
we talk about a nation.
But can I say? I'm saying I just want to say something.
They had 10 million, 5 million people.
Say it.
But they're saying abortion, and they keep putting abortion out there. But I don't think it's just abortion. Obviously, I think it's
still
other
killing
avenues.
Babies.
Right.
All the way up to birth. All the way up to birth.
Right. But I don't think that's the only way that they're killing children.
But what I'm saying is, how many people does America have? 250?
About 330 million.
Right. Okay. I can guarantee you there were not more than 5 million. 5 to 7 million Israelites.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm just saying we're killing many, many more. Right. And the Satanists are trying to get it to a point where they get to offer them.
Use it as a satanic ritual.
Yes. Yeah. And so we got Satanists want to take advantage of this and sacrifice them. I don't think we're any different than these societies that were on the edge. That were so on the edge, right, that they lost what they had. America, in a sense, has got more churches, more Christians.
Yep.
You could say, I don't know what because I'm sure there were practicing good Jewish
Faithful,
families at that time.
There's always going to be a remnant. Yeah.
But I'm not being ignorant here. But on a side note, I completely understand how the rest of the world thinks that Americans are arrogant.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because they are.
Yeah.
Right. And because I've been all over the world multiple times. I've been to Asia 50 times. I've been to Europe 4 times. I've been to the Middle East 8 different times. All these places multiple times. Trust me, the world thinks Americans are arrogant. Okay, and mostly because how they act when they go into these countries. Aside from that, I don't want this to be an arrogant statement, is what I'm saying. I don't want to offend the people that watch us from other countries, but sometimes it's to the detriment of the world that they seem to follow after what America's doing,
Right.
especially right now. Not in everything, but just for one example, think about the riots that started here.
Yeah.
They wound up all over the world.
Yeah.
Did they not?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just saying Americans got all these churches, all these Christians, right? And they're either being pulled into the woke social justice thing, okay?
Yeah.
Or they're walking completely away from God.
Right.
And just like the Church of England is making God a pronoun, I guarantee you the Episcopalians will not be far behind.
Yeah.
Many of them don't care what's going on because these Christians, as we said, the Old Testament gods, Molech, Baal, Ashtoreth, are very prevalent. And you'll have to go to earlier episodes if you're just hearing this, because we go into that in detail. But I guess the point I'm trying to make here is I'm trying to set this up. Okay, I'm sorry it took so long to set up. Is even when things are wicked and bleak and satanic,
Yeah.
all right? If you don't quit, right, and if there is a remnant, right, that is calling these things in, you can have all that is God going on. What we're going to read about, God can still send a person that's good,
Right.
or even bad. A
Yeah.
person that's bad. He can work through a bad person. All right? And that's what we're going to start into next week. Remember, we read that scripture that says, use this stuff as an example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you want to get ahead of us, in northern Israel, his name was Jehu, Jehu. Now, there was a prophet also named Jehu. It's not him. The prophet makes a short appearance. This other Jehu, Jehu, this guy's not going to be a good guy. You're going to see. And I'm going to read to you some commentary out of the Amplified Bible here as we start to close. Because Israel in the north was under the worst king ever, as bad as that Manasseh guy, worse. Ahab had again fallen under the spell of his queen Jezebel,
Yep.
and even thought the prophet Elijah. Remember, he killed all those Baal priests,
Right.
in that competition
Isn't
of
it
the gods.
interesting that all these like men are so swayed by women?
Yes, again, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Like if you
Like
listen
Adam.
to it, you for real. But you keep talking about
yeah,
it.
for sure.
Samson,
Yeah.
Solomon. I mean, Solomon had 1,000 women telling him what to do. Can you imagine?
And then he now we have the Proverbs 31 woman that he wrote about.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But I'm
Which one was that? Out
Well,
of the 1,000?
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
There's probably more than one. But
I mean,
The
but
virtuous woman.
no, I thought you were talking about Solomon's women. Sorry, I was like, I'm sure more than one was telling him what to do. But anyways,
Look, remember when Elijah, they all got on the hill and they had a competition of the gods?
yeah.
yes.
And Elijah personally killed like dozens and dozens
Yeah.
of Baal prophets.
Yeah. Mhm.
And these are Jezebel's guys.
Yeah.
I will say this. Jezebel killed over 1,000 prophets of God in her time, right?
Yeah.
If you study it out. Minimum hundreds.
Dang.
Okay. And so
She nasty.
And so Baal worship recovered, okay? This was under Ahab and Jezebel. After Elijah killed all their top Baal guys, right? It recovered. And here's the thing. Ahab had 70 sons. And you still had Jezebel in a position of power.
That's a lot of kids.
Okay, because God sets it up that Ahab gets killed by the Syrians in war, right?
Yeah.
So here we go. I'm telling you where we're kicking it off. Next week, Ahab gets killed, the worst king ever. But here, you had Jezebel still in power. All those sons, one of them is going to get the throne, right? And one does.
Yeah.
One of those sons gets the throne, one of Ahab's sons. And so, and all those Israeli nobles, they're all wicked. They're all basically devil worshipers, all right? But Jehu, who was known as an opponent of Baal in his early days.
Interesting.
But he was also like a super soldier. This guy was, he was special, all right? And he was ruthless too. And you're going to see God using this guy, all right?
Yeah.
Who in the end is not a good guy. And he uses Jehu to grant, this is what I'm getting at, a reprieve to northern Israel for like a 30 to 40 year time span.
Well, that's positive to think about.
Well, wouldn't we like a 30 to
that'd
40
be
year
I
really
would
good.
love it.
Wouldn't you like a 30 to 40 year time span for your 20-year-old child?
I would.
Because that puts
Yes.
them at 60.
Yeah.
I'd only be
Definitely.
80. I'm okay with that.
You might be a great
81.
grandmother by that point.
Oh my gosh. I don't want to think about my kids having kids right now. Okay.
2 Kings
could be a
9.
grandma. At this
You're
point.
like you're right on the cusp.
I am.
You're in the
I'm in the zone.
time. Yeah.
He-
The clock has already started.
yeah, it is. Thank God he doesn't have a girlfriend yet.
I just want to be honest. I don't want to sound heartless, but I don't want grandkids.
You don't?
Is that awkward?
Grandpa Jimmy?
That is a little weird,
Is it weird?
but you
But
got to roll.
I don't want to do the
work.
work.
You're the grandpa.
The grandpa.
What work do you got to do?
You've got
you
the.
can't. I guarantee
It's
you,
the
these
better.
kids will be left with me. They will be left with me for it. I'm not doing a day. I might do an hour.
Well,
Come
you
get
know,
them in an
you
hour.
start-
No one's
start
going
at
to
the
go
beginning.
out of their way to drop that baby off
Start-
for 1 hour. I'm just going to tell you. And if they say, I'll be back in an hour, they're lying. They
I just
got to
go to Target.
I'll visit and on my
Take the
own.
baby with you to Target.
Listen. I did my work.
Yeah.
We all did.
Huh?
Congratulations.
Not
Well,
everybody
John
does it.
John's
I'm
still in
still-
his
Yeah,
work.
John's-
John has a
I
baby.
signed up for an extra shift.
John's in the hard part. John's in the hard part right now.
Little baby.
Okay, 2 Kings. I don't know how.
Not
we
me, my son.
Got way off.
Yeah, little
yeah.
baby. Yeah.
Sorry, I know that. Just
It's okay, Jim. That's how you
can I
feel.
not want?
You can.
Well, but
grandchildren?
it's not your choice, though. That's the great thing.
No, it's not my
your
choice.
children's choice.
But it looks good because I've got children. Not 29, 26. No one's got any kids.
Well, actually, the average age of a family having children now is like 29 to 32, I think.
Is it?
So you're right in that cusp.
You're in the sweet spot.
You are.
Maybe they won't trust me anyways, right? I don't know.
Hey,
I wasn't.
I
gonna
would
say-
leave my baby. If someone would have taken my baby,
Yeah.
well, not anybody. I would have left my baby.
Yeah.
My babies.
Well,
Okay,
yeah,
well.
because Rolo's there to.
Yeah. Think of your little dog. Think of that dog.
Rolo
You'll
will
be
love.
pounced right on top of them.
Hazel loves the baby. at
My
our
dog
house.
just runs into, tries to run into little kids.
I wasn't there, but Hazel sat on the baby.
They do that,
It's funny. They're just
She
trying to
had no
help.
idea.
She probably didn't want the baby
yeah.
to move, so she sat.
Yeah, she wanted something
Yeah.
from Elizabeth.
Okay.
2 Kings 9, 1 through 12. Elisha the prophet called one of the sons of the prophets. The sons of the prophets are always like prophets in training.
Yeah.
And so they're like assistants, right?
Yeah.
Gird up your loins. Take this flask of oil in your hand. Go to Ramoth Gilead. When you arrive, look for Jehu, son of Jehoshaphat. That's not the Jehoshaphat.
That's a long time
That's-
ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
Son of Nimshi, and go in and have him arise from among his brethren, lead him to another chamber, get him out of the room, take the cruse of oil, pour it on his head, and say, "Thus says the Lord, I have anointed you king over Israel." Then open the door and run out of there. So this is a risk doing
Wow.
this. Okay,
Yeah.
so pour the oil. Go and get
then
Jehu, take him
beat it.
aside into another room, dump the oil over his head, anoint him as king. over northern Israel and run. And the young man, the young prophet went, but he did a little extra. Listen to this. He came, the captains of the army were sitting outside. He said, I have a message for you, O Captain Jehu. Jehu said, which of us? And he said, to you, O Captain. Jehu rose, then went into the house.
I like that Jim changes voices there between the two characters.
Hey, I'm a prophet.
You would be a good grandpa reading your books.
I'm the son of a prophet. And the prophet poured the oil on Jehu's head. Wait, the prophet, the son of the prophet, poured the oil on Jehu's head and said to him, Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, I have anointed you king over the people of the Lord, even over Israel. You shall strike down the house of Ahab, your master, that I may avenge the blood of my servants, the prophets of all the servants of the Lord who have died at the hands of Jezebel.
He got a little extra there.
Yeah, he did. For the whole house of Ahab shall perish. I will cut off from Ahab every male, bond, or free in Israel. So kill them all. All right.
Wow.
And I will make the house of Ahab like the house of Jeroboam, because that's what happened to him, because they got so evil. And I'll make the house, and another guy named Baasha. And the dogs shall eat Jezebel in the portion of Jezreel, and nobody's going to even be able to bury her.
Then didn't she get run over by like chariots and stuff after the animals? Are you getting there?
No.
She didn't? That wasn't her? No. I thought that happened to somebody.
She fell from the castle, and the
You'll
dogs.
see what happens.
Okay,
You remember a little bit there, Linnea. He did stomp all over her with his horse. He opened the door and fled. The young guy did what he's supposed to do. Prophesies over Jehu.
And then he runs away.
And he tells him, "You got to kill this king's house. You got to kill this king's line. You're going to be king."
You got to John Wick this thing.
And so
John Wick's stupidest movie.
Jehu comes out to the servants, the other captains.
Sorry, Keanu Reeves.
In the Israeli army, he comes out. These high-ranking guys are there, and they're like, "What was that all about?" And he tries to blow it off. And they said, "Just tell us what it's about." He said, he basically says, he spoke to me saying, "Thus says the Lord, I have anointed you king over Israel." And let me tell you what, in a short time, we're going to find out next week, a very short time, everything changed. Okay?
That's good.
Everything changed. So you got this guy coming out of nowhere.
You can read.
And we're going to get into this next week, okay? He changes everything, politically, spiritually, every single thing you can think of. He changes, and for 40 years, all right?
Man.
So there's hope for America.
1 Corinthians
For 40 years.
1 Corinthians 10:11. Now, I'd just be happy with that right now.
Yeah.
Just give us a 30-year reprieve. Now, all these things happen unto them for examples to the Israelites, for examples to us. And they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come.
That's good. That's good.
So I know that was a lot. That was a lot of setup. I usually haven't had to set this up. It's like a little. It's like a little 4 series. But I just kind of realized over time, these are examples to us.
Absolutely.
Look at the place that the Israelites were in. These are the people of God.
Yeah.
Right. And look where they had fallen, and look what happened to them, and look how they got there, and look how God sent men to pull them out of there and give them a reprieve, even,
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Linnea.
Even at the behest, even with putting a guy who's maybe not the purest of heart, but took the mission. And
this guy, I think I just thought of the opening.
Yeah.
Right.
I was gonna do a little. Maybe it could be debatable. I don't know. But what if, because you're saying good or evil, right?
Yeah.
And if we're on track for the rapture to happen in 2030, right? Yeah. Let's just say based off of.
You think the rapture's coming in 2030?
No, I'm just saying this is just
Linnea?
potential. I don't know. I'm just
throwing
this out there.
Yeah.
And you're saying good or bad, someone could come in and save everybody and give you a reprieve.
Yeah.
Do you think that just based off of the signs, and if that didn't happen, and it was the Antichrist who did come in and was the reprieve, and people looked at that?
Okay, so we don't get a reprieve.
No, I'm just asking a question.
I think we're going to get a reprieve. Okay, I'm not saying 40 years, but I think something's going to change. Something is going to change here.
We need it to, because it's a dark place.
But no, the church, he comes back. The church is not in a place of weakness.
No. Yeah.
Like it is. You hear me?
Because it has to be removed.
Do I need to come in with those scriptures to you guys?
I think it's a good idea.
Well, then
Linnea needs it.
Write this down when we get back. Write this down. Because
I'll put it on the board. The
yeah,
list.
put it on the board. Because look,
What am I doing?
the church is coming in, is getting raptured, not in a point of weakness. It's going to be in a point of domination.
Yeah.
All
And
right?
don't you think the world needs that right now? They
Yes,
need it. There are so many
absolutely.
sad and broken
And I'm
people
saying,
and
yeah.
things.
He can do that. We're looking for it in a certain way. He can do it through a Jehu, or he can do it through a Josiah.
Yeah.
Either way, if he can give a 40-year reprieve to those guys who are burning their babies, he can give us a 4 or a 3.
Year
right?
reprieve?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would take that.
Yes. Yes. That's all we're looking for right now. Just give us, just give us,
Just
3 or
give
4.
us some breathing room.
Right. Yes. But listen, take your authority.
Yes.
Stay in prayer. Watch on the walls. We're not trying to scare anyone.
No.
We're just trying to
Absolutely
tell you to stand up. You stand up for what you believe. You stand up for Jesus Christ.
Yes.
But the Bible tells us to be watchers. So
Yeah.
if we're not watching, then how can you stand against? Because honestly, if you're not reading this stuff, like I have one sister who's like, I don't want to know anything about it. I'm like, then what do you know? How do you know what to stand against?
Right.
How do you know what to pray against? How do you know what to?
And you're going to get whooped.
Yeah.
I don't want to get
You're,
whooped.
you're going to get whooped. If you're not watching, trust me, watch what happens. All right. You're going to get whooped. All right.
Yep.
And you're in danger of being deceived because you don't know what's going on. I'm just telling you, didn't we just go over the church, the people that weren't watching?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
They got like a
absolutely.
thief in the night.
Yeah. And Jesus is saying, you guys have slipped. You're not paying attention. Right. How does it turn it around?
Right.
You watch.
You watch.
You have to start by watching. And so I feel like there was one more thing I wanted to end with. What was it? Do you guys can you read my mind here? Because it slipped for me.
No,
Do you want
something
to pray,
missing?
Jim? I don't know.
Do I want to pray?
I don't know what else. I don't
Well,
know
I-
what else you're going to say.
I mean,
Thanks to our watchers.
if I was to make a conversion as far as to America from what we're talking about as far as the church, America right before the revolution, it was about 2% taxes that the King George had levied against the colonies. And they had such little tolerance of being taken
Just being
advantage
dominant.
of, being taken advantage of over 2%, that they said it won't stand. But the American church and the American people are taking so much more, and we're losing ground. So we have to have a turnaround. And I'm not saying about politics or anything else. I'm saying culture is slipping.
Yeah.
Society is slipping.
Yeah.
And if we don't make a stand and stand for what the Lord has directed us to do, and a lot of what we're talking about here in the podcast is we have to take a stand and start taking ground, and the Lord will show us how to do that.
In the Spirit, use your authority.
Yes.
Pray for your president. Pray for your vice president. Pray for the United States Senate.
Yep.
And the United States House of Representatives and the Minnesota State Senate or Minnesota House of Representatives. Pray for the governor, right? And I do every day, right? And I take authority.
Yes.
I take authority for them, and ask that with their godly wisdom would be imparted to them. That's for starters, but also when things are trying there's so much confusion, there's so much noise, there's so many things happening, you can just get so desensitized to what is going on if you're not paying attention.
Right.
And that's just too bad, because there's too many of people like that say, I don't want to know.
But can
I
I
don't
say
wanna
something
know.
that this helped me with? Because you say pray for your president and all these people, and sometimes you're like, how can you pray for someone who's not listening to God? But you're saying God can use good or bad people.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anyone's good or bad. I'm just saying that gives you hope that God can use anybody.
Absolutely.
So who are we to put limits on what somebody can do from God, like with direction from the Lord?
Amen.
Or an
Linnea.
advisor.
It doesn't have to be a 10-minute prayer. You're commanding the principalities and the powers, or you would say demons or spiritual entities that are assigned to them, to back off.
Yep.
That you are, in the name of Jesus Christ, that is the president of my country. I am told to pray for these people in the name of Jesus Christ. I command those spirit or spirits that are assigned to him, from the pit of hell. I bind you. It says, whatever you bind on earth is bound in heaven.
Right.
Whatever you loose on earth is loosed in heaven. It has to be bound on earth first. It has to be bound. I bind you. I rebuke you. I resist you in the name of Jesus Christ. And you desist in your maneuvers from coming against this person, coming against that person. You do this over your children.
Yeah.
And, you can go into detail. You can bring into certain things, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you feel led that you want to bring. All right.
Yeah.
So I hope I'm being clear there. We just appreciate you guys tuning in. But really, today is about.
Yeah.
It can happen so quick because it happened. I'm going to show you 2 instances where everything flipped so quick.
Be ready
for a whole country.
Yeah.
Good.
And so we're going to come back with that next week. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Final Hour podcast. God bless you guys.